Hi, I'm Scott's Case Files, and I'm here to give you 5 tips to MCing Urban Shadows. Now, a while ago, I MC'd 10 sessions of Urban Shadows, plus a session 0, and I also did a one-shot at a local convention of Urban Shadows, and it was cool. I love the game. I think it's one of my favorites right now. And I just love every aspect of it. So I was hoping to put out a little quick guide for people who are new to emceeing it, give you some tips on how to make a great experience for yourself and for the players, and it's really easy to do. Now, the first tip I'm going to give you is never skip the session intro move. So basically, this is a move where you go around the table, and each player is spotlighted by another. So basically, another player has to spotlight a faction for them, and then that player has to create a conflict or a rumor that they've heard that in best case scenario, some way involves them. Um, and basically, then roll the dice, and the dice tell them how well prepared they are to deal with their interaction with that rumor or whatever. So the cool part about that is that the players themselves create all the conflict in the game. They can when I got to the end of the run, so when I got to the end of the 10 sessions, I found that I, as the MC, created nothing, which is pretty cool. Generally, when you're the game master of a game, you create literally everything, right? So what was cool about this was they created all this conflict, all the conflict in the game, all these rumors, all these interactions between the factions that went around. They created that through their intro move. Um, and all I did as the MC was make logical moves of those creations as time went on, through and then like through their inactions or misses on rolls. Moving a plot line forward here and there. So I did create kind of this intricate spider's web of entanglements of those conflicts. But it was so cool because, again, at the end of the run, the players had created everything, and that was so cool to me. It was fantastic, and that also means that game prep is really low. I used to do a game prep stream on days before the actual Urban Shadows run, and it was so sad I stopped doing it because I was at the time I was running Urban Shadows and Masks, and my game prep for those took all of 20 minutes. So it was like, why am I doing this stream? So yeah, so your game prep is basically, let's look over the various NPCs that the characters have created, take a look at the various conflicts that they've created, and say, okay, well, this is happening in the background. Their inaction here means this plot line moves forward, that kind of thing. So that's all you have to do, and so it's fantastic. The second great part of the session intro move is that this is a way for the characters to tell you, as the MC, what they're interested in seeing or doing in a given place in your campaign. So it's like, I want more, wolf pack involvement. I really want to, investigate these wolf packs in the city. So, the player will say, okay, well, my thing is, yeah, I actually accidentally walked in on a wolf killing a mortal, and that's a no-no in the city. And now I'm embroiled in it. They're calling me a liar. They're saying I kill it. That kind of thing. So this is the player's opportunity to tell you as the MC what they're interested in doing in the game. So it's like a soft push in that direction. Um, by the end of 10 sessions, there were so many of these conflicts, rumors. It was impossible for me to act on all of them, but they all at least touched somewhere, and that was so cool. So the only time you should skip the session intro move is if you're doing a one shot. A one shot, you already have your plot line going here, and what they're involved in is irrelevant because you just don't have time to investigate it. You have time for your main event. Tip number 2. So start with few preconceptions. So you have the playbooks, the various, creatures, mortal and otherwise, and that defines some of the abilities and how these various playbooks work, how these characters work. But it's cool that you don't predefine literally everything like before you even start the game. Uh, that's what playing the game is for. You're playing the game to create this world together, you and the players. So, like for example, the first time a vampire is killed, does their now here's where we establish, what happens. Do they fall down? Do they Buffy the Vampire Slayer it and like dissolve into, dust? Do they suddenly age to their real age? Do they just look like a normal mortal after their death, etc., etc.? Do wolves actually take damage from special damage from silver? Are they vulnerable to it? Do exorcisms work on specters? So don't come in. So create the world as you're playing it, and you can remake the world every time you start a new campaign. And that's kind of one of the cool things about Urban Shadows. So basically, yeah. So create the rules of the world as you go. Um, but tip number three is once you establish something in the fiction, stick to it. So let's go back to that vampire example. If you decide that vampires turn to dust when they're killed, and one of the characters is like, okay, so I promised this person I would bring proof of the death of this vampire, so I'm going to cut off his head. So he cut off his head. Oh, oh crap! We forgot that vampires when they're killed, they dissolve into dust. So, all right, now you don't have, you did what you did, you acted, and now, the fiction has to take its course. So, yes, the body disintegrates, and I get to find a different way to prove that you killed this vampire to whoever you owe this favor to or whatever, that kind of thing. So, stick to the fiction that you've created. It's so important. And if you don't, you kind of rob your players of what they've helped you create. So, don't do it. Tip number four, and really important one, a miss is not necessarily a failure, and it's actually more fun if it isn't. So if you're new to Powered by the Apocalypse style games and whatnot, this can kind of be a weird oddity coming from other games where, like, if you fail at a roll, you just fail. If you succeed, you succeed, and that's pretty much it. So a miss in Urban Shadows is basically if you roll your two-sided dice and you added any modifiers, if your end result is 1 to 6, you have a miss. 7 to 9, partial success, partial win, and 10 plus, potentially a greater effect. So what's cool about this, treating a miss as not necessarily a failure, is you get to move things forward as an MC. So let's say in any other game system, you're trying to get past a door, you're trying to, bash it in or pick a lock or whatever. And you're the player who does that kind of thing, either brute force or picking luck. If they fail that roll, they just don't get past the door. And that's not too fun. It's a challenge to the player, having enough skill to do it, etc. But the fun of the game suddenly stops. And Urban Shadows and other Powered by the Apocalypse games don't want that to happen. So let's say, you are, brutally, breaking a door and you get a miss. Okay, well, let's not stop the action. Let's find out what happened. So yeah, your character breaks down that door. Do they maybe, there's a penalty to that. Something did go wrong. It was a miss. So that as an MC, you have a whole bunch of options and they're all cool. So and you can logically decide kind of what happened. So yeah, you bash in that door and oh, you didn't know how reinforced it was, and you end up taking one harm as you kind of realize that there was rivets in it and one kind of embedded kind of in your shoulder as you jammed into it. Um, Otherwise, it could advance something in the background. If you're trying to steal something from someone and okay, that trips an alarm, or a faction, another faction that you've been in conflict with finds out about you getting into this building somehow, someone saw you, and that advances another plot line. So this is A miss is so much more. It's the opportunity for the MC to be creative and to make an interesting, conflict and situation for the player, and to move things forward. Okay, final tip number 5. Sometimes there's not a move for something, and that's okay. So, for example, in Urban Shadows, there's no hacking skill. And the whole thing about Urban Shadows, it's based on relationships. It's based on going to places. It's based on interacting with people. So there really shouldn't be one. Uh, now, however, let's say, for example, a player who they've established that their character is some kind of hacker, and that they are in a place. Now that's a good time to do investigate a place of power. So now, okay, well, now in the fiction, you've established how you're investigating this place. You're kind of hacking into its inner workings. So that's a cool time to use a move that already exists. Um, so when you can, if they want to do something that's not a move, then it just doesn't trigger a move. Continue on, make it interesting. There's no lock picking, move in Urban Shadows. So it's okay to just say, okay, well, your character doesn't know how to lockpick, so okay, you really can't lockpick it. Or yeah, sure, lockpick it. You get through it, and this happened. Now we get to continue the story and go on, etc., etc. Now there's also time for custom move. But I would generally recommend against those, except when we're talking like a location-based type of move. Um, like for example, you go into specific club, and when you go and you roll the die, and depending on how you do, you might end up in like the mosh pit, pulled into the mosh pit up, on accident or whatever, or that kind of thing, or somebody notices you from the faction, that kind of thing. So there are times to use a custom move, but generally, if there isn't a move for something, don't worry about it. Just play through it and do the next logical thing. If there is a move that would, kind of explain how you're doing what you're doing, then use it. Otherwise, continue on. Do your thing. So I'm hoping those tips help you, have a better experience as an MC of Urban Shadows. It's a really awesome game. I could not possibly recommend it more because it's just so cool. Everything about it, from the moves, the basic moves, the playbooks, everything, kind of succeed or miss, brings you back to the fiction, brings you back to the story, brings you back to the action. It forces you to get in there and do stuff that is fun. So absolutely, get out there, play it. You're gonna love it. And as an MC, you're working with your players to create this world, and it's so awesome. And I highly recommend it. So get out there, play some Urban Shadows, and have a great time. You will not regret it. Okay. I'm Scott of Scott's Case Files, and bye for now. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if this video is helpful to you, and I hope to talk to you again soon. See you later. Bye for now.